Good day and welcome to Huda's Career Info. Today's guest is going to wow us with so much history, so much information, and so many resources. His name is Phil Jarvis. Phil Jarvis created Choices, an online career exploration and planning system that was adopted by many schools in Canada and thousands more in the US. He has led national and international career projects, including Canada Prospects, The Real Game, and the Blueprint for Lifework Designs. Phil believes that helping youth find their why or purpose and acquire the competencies and character they need for lifelong success and happiness should be job number one for the nation. As a board committee member with the International Association of Educational and Vocational Guidance, the National Career Development Association, the Association of Career and Technical Education, Transitions Canada Coalition, Canadian Council for Career Development, as well as with many other regional associations, as you will find out in the episode. Phil's voice has been influential in the evolution and continues to be influential in the evolution of the career development sector. I hope you will enjoy learning from this episode as much as I did. All right, welcome, Phil Jarvis. Thank you so much. You've supported me before in the past when no one had heard of me, and now you're here again supporting me. So I just want to say thank you so much for your support.
And well, look, it's my pleasure, Hoda, and it seems like a while ago now that you first reached out to me, but my golly, you have zeroed in on your profession and you're really making your mark, and I'm proud of you and very pleased to be associated with you.
Thank you so much, Phil. So you're supporting me here, and right away, part of my series is getting into definitions of career terms. And
Right.
today, for you, I chose career literacy for youth. And when I talk about youth, I'm thinking of ages 14 to 25. What would be your definition of career literacy for youth?
Well, I guess what I would like to hope is that by the time all young people come out of, and of course this influences adults later on, but all young people come out of public education, the compulsory education that we believe is necessary for all young people in our country, with a very clear understanding of their authentic self, truly who they are, their story, their purpose, and their aspirations. And this would include awareness through community-based learning projects and that I hope they would be involved in from K to 12. And you'll hear later on that I believe very strongly about project-based learning and experiential personalized learning. But they would be aware of the employers in their NS public, private sector, voluntary, in their community and elsewhere that are now working towards solutions to the issues the young people care about. So they're not coming out of the education system being forced to make a decision about post-secondary or feeling like they're forced and under great stress to pick the right major. And then even coming out of that program, not sure where they're going to land beyond that. They've just done what everybody asked them to do. So I think it's also important that they have a clear awareness of the most efficacious learning pathways to the roles that interest them. And that means, and that might not be university. It might be, in fact, a job initially with an employer that's doing work they care about. For example, in climate, in controlling climate change, in poverty, in equity issues, and so on. And then discovering more and more about what they really believe their purpose is, and then additional pathways that they could follow. So university might come a little bit later, college might come a little bit later, and a blend of experience and learning can be terrific. And so rather than being encumbered in massive student loan debt as they come off, the starting line to their career, they might actually have money in the bank and be already working in a field that they truly care about. So it's really not so much about the curriculum as it is about self-knowledge and a sense of direction and purpose and why I'm here and how I want to change the world and who's doing it now and how can I connect with them now and find out more about if this truly is a passion of mine and what are the best ways to get me to a place that I really want. I feel like I'm meant to be.
Thank you so much, Phil. Yes, this is a very good way of looking at it. And I like your focus on awareness. I like your focus on self-reflection and really getting to know the different industries. And with based on that, I think you created what you keep telling me many years ago, a program that is called Choices. Can you tell the audience about it? I really always seek to inform the audience of what happened in the past, but also what have we built on of what was there. It was a popular program, and it tell us a little bit about the career exploration and planning system within it.
I'm very proud of Choices and all of us across Canada who worked on that program. Just to set the stage, I was working with Employment and Immigration Canada, a few desks down from Lynn Bezanson. We were both reporting to a fellow named Stuart Conger. And at a conference in Vancouver in 1975, it was the Canadian Guidance and Counseling Association. The names have changed quite a bit over the years. Stu challenged me to research a career system down in Oregon called CIS, actually, the Career Information System at the University of Oregon in Eugene. I didn't want to do computers. I wasn't excited about computers at that time. Remember, they're only mainframe computers, and the only exposure I had was at college using key punch cards on mainframe computers. There was nothing. No teacher or student had ever touched an interactive computer system that actually responded when you gave it information. And so the Choices system, actually, people would use dumb terminals that we called them dumb terminals because they looked like typewriters. In fact, that's all they were, but they're connected via telephone lines to a mainframe computer. In our case, it was based at Seneca College, and the federal government contracted for use of that computer. So people could actually sit down at the computer, talk about their interests, their educational aspirations, their salary expectations, their personality traits, whether or not they wanted to work inside, outside, whether they had physical challenges, and so on. And the computer would spit out lists of occupations. Now, this sounds pretty familiar because everybody's been exposed to these kind of systems since then. But I have to tell you, in 1975, 76, this was unheard of. Nobody had done that before. So we were breaking new ground entirely. Even at the time, I was very concerned. My team and I were very concerned about this business of garbage in, garbage out, or garbage in, gospel out, even worse, because it's a computer system. You assume it's coming up with correct answers, but if you don't give it good information, it will give you instant, very clever looking answers, but they're wrong because what you put in about your interests and aspirations and so on wasn't accurate. So we built a process around the computer system. Back then, it was such a motivation to be able to touch and interact with the computer, especially one that addressed you by your first name. And that was unheard of and shocked people at the time. They would actually work to earn the right to get on the computer. So we forced them to work through a manual, really thinking through their interests, their temperaments, what they want, fields that they're interested in, and so on. And we also insisted that they talk with a counselor just to talk through these things and make sure there weren't any misunderstandings about terminology, meaning, and so on. And then they would get on the computer system on their own totally and interact with the computer. They'd come away with several feet of computer printout because it wasn't happening on screens back then. It was happening through a typewriter. They'd be impressed because they'd have a list of occupations, training programs, and so on. But again, we insisted that they had to follow up with a counselor afterwards to derive meaning from what went on there and how they felt about it And if they were to do it differently, would they change anything? And what's the next step? So it was really quite a process. And I have to say, from 1977, when we first piloted in British Columbia and Alberta, those were the first two pilots. And then the following spring, piloted in New Brunswick and Ontario, the next two. So we're talking 1977 now. It turns out that the state of Florida, I had looked at all of the US systems, there were only about 6 at the time, and most of them were key punch or not interactive. The Oregon one was, and that one appealed to me. But it wasn't doing a number of the things that I thought a computer could do, like addressing people by their first name and allowing people to find related occupations to one that they maybe loved, but now can't do because of an incapacity of some sort. To compare occupations, to look at training. And anyway, the first adoption of choices across the whole system was the state of Florida for every school in Florida. The next one was North Carolina. The next one was Kansas. And at that point, Canadians seemed to realize that the Americans liked this thing, so maybe it was pretty good. And ultimately, within the next 3 or 4 years, it literally went to virtually every school and employment center in Canada. So from never having touched a computer before, all teachers, all students, to basically every school in the country, when the line cost to get back to that mainframe in Labrador would be $6,000 a month, for example, or in Whitehorse, a little less expensive. You're in an urban center. That was an amazing success. It's hard, and then of course it was adopted by 13 or 14 U.S. states following that, more than any American system. So it was a tremendous Canadian success story that we ought to be all proud of. I mean, My Blueprint, Zello, and other systems are the evolution of that kind of system. But in some ways, I just have to say, we felt strongly about the need for counseling before and counseling after. Now I'm afraid too often students are just pointed to the computer and told the computer will have an answer for you. And the same old garbage in, garbage out still works. So I think a little bit more human, eyeball to eyeball, heart to heart contact would be very helpful for a lot of people using these systems.
Thank you, Phil, for providing this background. I really appreciate it. There are things that we can't find on the internet, and what you just shared is something probably not printed. And so thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
It's such an innovative program, as you mentioned, it's a base for many of the new program that's come out. But I agree with you also that regardless of the program used, having a counselor to build on these results remains now important. With all the technology available with any career, I guess. System.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, as a passionate supporter of career literacy for youth, saying that you've been involved since the 1970s, in your opinion, can the education system evolve to support the career literacy for youth? Have you seen some changes in the past that tell us, even though we still have a long way to go, we have moved forward? Or do you feel we need to do a lot more still?
Well, in some ways, I do believe that we might have done a better job of the individual counseling back in the 1970s and 80s. Now there's a real dependence on computer systems, the internet, social networking, and so on. And very often it's really self-directed entirely. So, and I acknowledge that counselors have an impossible job, especially in the school system, right up through university. I mean, they have ratios of, one counselor to 500 students. It's very difficult to get into in-depth, personalized, meaningful career counseling in a 15 or 20-minute session once or twice a year, if students are lucky enough to have that. But I also, in my own mind, I've gone from thinking that career counseling was about helping people make critical decisions at key points in time. So it was point in time decision making. how do I decide what my occupational goal is? And once that's solved, that riddle's taken care of. Now, how do I decide what my program or my major will be in post-secondary? Then how do I decide which employer, I should be targeting, or do I just shotgun? So now I do believe that based on, the image that I gave you of what I believe career development is, it's far more of a learning challenge than it is a point in time deciding challenge. So from that point of view, I believe that career, or what is my purpose in life, really has to be at the core, at the heart, at the center of what we're doing in education. That frankly, answering those questions are much more important than memorizing how to handle quadratic equations or factor polynomials, or what the sequence of kings and queens in England or France was. So I do believe that all of education really needs to be about that question of not what are you going to be when, as if you're going to turn into something else at some point, but who are you now, and how do you want to impact the world? What do you want to bring to your family, your community, your country, the world? And so those are the big questions, and they can't be learned just from curriculum. Certainly not the curriculum that's in place in most places now, because it's assuming that we have to get information into young people's heads so they can somehow sort it all and solve the riddle of what their place is in this world. But I think that has to be the pivotal question. So I've gone a long way now from focusing on providing good information for counselors to help people at points in time, to believing that this really is a lifelong learning quest. And the most amazing learning happens in the first 2 years of life. We all learn a foreign language. We learn to control every muscle in our body. That's pretty tricky stuff. A lot more tricky than figuring out how to operate a crane or a bulldozer. And but we do all of that without lesson plans, without assignments, and without marks or tests. So I really believe that the big changes I'm seeing that I'm excited about are, for example, what Ted Dintersmith is doing with his films and books on what success looks like in a school. Sir Ken Robinson, School Destroys Creativity. If we're just focusing on time sequence, age-based, prescribed curriculum and checking all the boxes to say we've taught it, we're not necessarily checking the boxes to say they've learned it or they knew why they even had to learn it, because they couldn't find any relevance to anything that they dream about. And of course, we tell them not to daydream. We tell them to focus on the blackboard. So actually the daydreaming and engaging the creativity and imaginations is the most important part of all about learning. So, and of course, Ted Dintersmith and Ken Robinson teamed up before Ken passed, unfortunately, on what they call their innovation playlist. And that's amazing. What the Aspen Institute has done with their amazing document, A Nation at Hope as opposed to a Nation at Risk, focusing on social emotional learning as the key. Ultimately, we are social animals, the most social animals, and we can't succeed at work, we can't succeed in marriages, we can't succeed in play, we can't succeed in long-term friendships without really having some level of skill in terms of social emotional education. Education Reimagined is an amazing network that is reimagining the whole education system around why am I here and what's my purpose and how can I learn best. Tom Markham is probably the leading voice in project-based learning, in my mind anyway. And UNESCO's The World's Largest Lesson is now all kinds of amazing lesson plans for how teachers at any grade level, from preschool right through to continuing education for retirees, can focus their learning around issues that the world really does need to solve. And they cover everything that anybody could be interested in, from helping people die as comfortably as possible, to taking plastics out of the oceans, to recycling, to equity and legislation and social justice and Black Lives Do Matter and everything else that that people actually do care about, and young people especially care about passionately and would give anything to be able to get involved and make a difference right now. And we know of the Greta Thunbergs and others who who are changing the world. So that shift, what I've seen is a shift from, but I still see way over dependence in far too many places on, the computer system and the portfolio system are really all about deciding what you're going to be when you grow up, and not nearly enough about how you learn the real world skills. Get involved with your community. Work in age-based groups to solve real problems, because every community, whether it's fresh water and some reservations or traffic pollution, whatever it might be, there are problems in every community. And we need to be engaging these young brains, these amazingly plastic young brains and emotional young brains, to get involved with people in their community now. So when they come out of school, they not only know who they are and what they want to do, but they've already established good relationships with people now doing what they care about. And they can step right into the role that they're choosing. And that's not to say they won't change minds along the way, because we all do. But the more experience is the best teacher, far better than the lecturer at the front of the classroom. So the more we can make it experiential, meeting other humans, and seeking from them what I call living labor market information. If you talk to somebody who's doing what you love to do, you're going to get a lot more out of that conversation than reading graphs and charts about the demand for people in any particular occupation. So I'm sorry, I went on longer than I wanted to there, but
well, no, I think your thoughts have really shown us the shift, that there are programs out there that are doing this shift, and that you have seen progress really from the 1970s to now. And by the way, I will share all the resources that you shared in the comments section for everyone who's not familiar with them. But this is all really great work that I think they are, creating the movement, and hopefully we are getting there.
Let me just add, Hoda, if I may, that I did, I mentioned people and programs and initiatives on the tip of my tongue, but there are amazing things happening in every school district in Canada, in every college and university in Canada. Some amazing people doing some amazing innovative things. And I won't start naming them, because I couldn't possibly name them all. But I do try to keep track, and I'm amazed what people in Canada are doing. But there's still far too much dependence on age-based prescribed curriculum, and not nearly enough, right from the youngest years, on experiential, project-based, community-based, personalized, it's about the kids, learning. And just frankly, relaxing a little bit about the exams and the marks, because in the final analysis, nobody is going to ask you for the rest of your life what mark you got on anything. But they'll sure know whether you can get along with people, whether you're reliable and honest, have integrity, whether you can count on your word. Those kind of things will be evident to anyone. And they don't care what happened in school anyway.
Well, you are one of these innovators, and you continue to work. You're involved in many, many career boards as you push for this change in youth career education. So I'm looking for advice. How can we help youth? Like for me as an individual coach, or for parents of young people who are listening, how can they help their children, like right here, right away?
Well, I think, counselors and career development folks are frankly doing an amazing job. And with the new standards and guidelines and competence maps and so on, um, better than ever before. The field is more professional, more organized, and stronger than it's ever been before. It covers an awful lot of waterfront because counselors are expected to basically tackle just about any issue that comes up in a person's life, or at least be able to point them. But I think to keep the focus as much as possible on the who you truly are, your story, and from your story up until now, what does that tell us about possible pathways in the future? And really, the issue is not what, like let's find 5 occupational titles, but it's really about the roles and how do you want going forward, what difference do you want to make in the world, and who would you be working with to do that? And that could be differences. Somebody might want to be, the best. I mean, their goal might be the best, strongest, most loving family in the world. And that's where all of their attention is going to go. And that's beautiful. Somebody else might want to cure cancer. There's just so many ways that we can make a difference. I found later in life, I'm doing more and more volunteering in my community because I want to make a difference outside the circle of friends that I've been with and professionals that I've been with all my life, and to bring it home as well. So I do believe a checklist of how you want to change the world. The best checklist, if you wanted to start with any client, would be the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals and the targets. There are multiple targets under each of those goals. So people can, amongst those 17, fairly quickly choose the 2, 3, or 4 goals or issues that are highest on their list, and then zero in on any of those goals to see the targets, and then to see videos and lesson plans and amazing materials on those goals. So if we all started to really focus on how can we personally help address the big issues that are messing up our world, from this ridiculous polarization that's going on where it's all us and them, and those fools over there think this, and we're on the right track. We just have to find common ground and work with each other, but it's going to be around the issues we care about most deeply.
All right, I do have one final question. And that is about what are some of the ideas going through your mind, or some of the involvements that you are currently involved in that you would like to share with the audience, with career coaches or career seekers, and you would like them to know about either involvement, I guess, or current thoughts, whatever you'd like to talk about.
Sure. Okay. So a lot of my time right now, as a mostly retired person, is going into a Lions Club that I've helped form here in Moncton. It's called the Ladder Up Lions Specialty Club. It's one of a few Lions clubs in the world, but a growing number, that are focused on specific issues. And our issue is providing a life and job skills boot camp in the context of exploring 15 to 20 different trades. And it's all for young people not in education or employment or in training. In other words, they're lost. And some of those are kids in school that just aren't going to school anymore because they cannot see the point, or they have other issues that they're struggling with. But many of them are in their 20s and even in their 30s and beyond, who really have not found their way. Some of them did everything right and got through university, but have never found what they really wanted to do, and have not yet paid off their student loans that they were encouraged to go off and accumulate. Others are in trouble with the law or with substance abuse or with other issues. They're on the street in many cases. So the whole focus of this, and Lions Clubs, our motto is "We serve," and every single dollar that we are able to raise has to go back to the community. No lion has ever paid for anything, so it's pure. We've mobilized, the Chamber of Commerce and the 3 cities in this area in Greater Moncton, and many community-based organizations and many large employers to create what we're calling a Skills Center of Excellence, Greater Moncton Skills Center of Excellence. And we're partnering with Skills Canada New Brunswick, and Skills Canada has already said that once we're up and running with this, our center will be the Team Canada Training Center for Skills Canada. So the focus is on finding a future for young people who've given up hope, are lost, have no idea what their next steps are. Their families may have given up on them, others may have given up on them, but we believe they still deserve a chance to. So we're working in concert with Portage Atlantic, for example, which is a detox center for folks. And once they're clean, they still need to acquire skills that they can that will appeal to local employers and will allow them to get into good jobs or into apprenticeship programs or back to school once they have a new dream. And we've given them a ladder up out of the hole that they're in, and they see the sunshine and actually see possible pathways that excite them. So that's a big part of what I'm doing right now, and it feels very important. And there are thousands, unfortunately, of people up to mid-30s in this region, and frankly, everywhere across Canada, who have not figured out their pathway and need a ladder up. So I'm quite excited about that. I'm also just been appointed an advisor to a new project from the Labour Market Information Council on developing new resources to be used in schools and other centers to work with career development professionals to help people along the lines that I've been talking about. So I'm quite excited about working with Stephen Tobin and his whole team on that initiative as well. And that's a fully voluntary thing too. So it's at the time of my career now where I can just focus on what I truly think, where I truly think I can make a difference. And it's not worried about the career advancement or the money anymore.
Well, thank you so much for not going into retirement and continuing to work. I'll just repeat, Ladder Up. It sounds like an amazing project. I hope we can see it across Canada spread out.
Yeah, I hope so too.
It's definitely, the support that it provides is definitely needed across the country for sure. These are all the questions I have for you today, Phil. Was there anything else you would like to add about what's happening in the career literacy for youth field, or anything that you'd like to add?
Well, I think I'd just like to close by saying I don't think there's any nobler profession than trying to help people find their purpose and make their dreams come true. And I mean dreams, not just a paycheck, but I mean really be able to look forward to going to work and to come back maybe tired, but also feeling satisfied that something important happened today. And I know people like you, Hoda, across Canada, earn that good feeling at the end of the day, most days, by working with people who feel they have insurmountable problems and challenges and stress and pressure, and you give them help in finding their way forward. So hats off to you, and hats off to any career development practitioner who might be watching this. It's been a privilege for me throughout my career to work with the most amazing group of people. So let me end with that.
Thank you so much, Phil. Appreciate your support.
Thank you, Hoda.
Thank you so much for joining Hoda's Career Info. I hope you appreciated the history and the tons of resources shared by Phil Jarvis. I particularly loved the direction that Phil took when defining career literacy for youth. In my biased opinion, I hope this is where the education system is headed. The career development field is lucky that Phil continues to push for including career education in the K-12 system. You can connect with Phil on his website, philjarvis.ca, or on LinkedIn. I am your host, Hoda. Until next time, I hope you keep moving forward in positive and productive directions.